All right, today we're diving into something pretty intense. We're dissecting a strategic blueprint for what's being called full contact litigation. Now, this isn't your average lawsuit. Forget all that. This is a detailed, no holds barred game plan with one single, startling goal: the complete collapse of an institution. So here's how we're going to break this down. We've got 4 parts. First up, we'll get into the core philosophy, what's called the full contact mandate. Then we're going to talk about the weapon of choice here, the RICO Act. After that, we'll look at the nitty-gritty of actually building one of these cases. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together in a devastating 3-front attack.
Okay, so before we get lost in all the legal mechanics, it's absolutely crucial to understand the mindset behind a campaign this aggressive, because this is way more than just a legal strategy. It's a very specific and very deliberate philosophy of conflict.
Yeah, this quote right here, pulled straight from the blueprint, really sets the stage. The language is everything. I mean, when you hear phrases like no holds barred and maximally aggressive, you just know we've left the world of normal legal fights and walked into a whole different arena.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you justify this kind of extreme approach? Well, the blueprint brings up this fascinating ethical idea called the problem of dirty hands. The basic concept is, to achieve a really big moral goal, you might have to do things that go against your own ethical code. It's an attempt to reframe these actions not as just, criminal, but as a calculated, high-stakes moral choice. Now, let's be super clear. This is not just a simple the ends justify the means argument. It's more complex. A huge part of this dirty hands idea is that whoever's taking these actions has to fully own up to the ethical line they are crossing. They've got to be ready to face the music, whether that's personal guilt, public backlash, or even legal punishment. The moral cost isn't swept under the rug. It's actually priced right into the strategy from the get-go.
Okay, so that's the mindset. Now let's talk about the legal engine that makes this entire blueprint run. The main tool they point to is the RICO Act. You've probably heard of RICO, right? It stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Just think of it as the law that was designed to take down the mafia. But here's the thing. Its real power is in how unbelievably broad and flexible it is. Congress wrote it that way on purpose, which means it can be used in all sorts of situations that have nothing to do with organized crime. And this is where that flexibility really becomes a game changer. Under RICO, an enterprise isn't just a corporation. It can be a nonprofit, a church, or, and this is the big one, it can be any group of people who are just associated with each other, even if they're not a formal legal entity. This is so important because it lets you target how a group actually operates in the real world, not just what their official paperwork says. Okay, so we've got the weapon. Now, how do you actually build and launch one of these cases? Let's get into the legal nuts and bolts. To make a RICO case stick, you basically have to connect 5 dots. First, prove an enterprise exists. Second, show it affects interstate commerce. That one's usually pretty easy. Third, link your defendant to that enterprise. Fourth, you've got to show a pattern of racketeering, which is just a series of related crimes. But that 5th step, that's the knockout punch. You have to prove that the defendant used that pattern of crime to actually run the business of the enterprise. This distinction right here is absolutely critical. It's not enough to just show that some crimes happened at an organization. You have to prove that the organization itself, its structure, its procedures, its bank accounts, was the actual vehicle for those crimes. The analogy I love is this: the enterprise is the car, and the pattern of racketeering is how it's being driven. This table does a great job of making it all real. It shows how investigators connect these abstract legal ideas to actual concrete evidence. For instance, to prove an enterprise, they're going to hunt for stuff like org charts, internal emails, and follow the money. And to prove conduct, that someone actually took part in running the criminal operation, they'll look for things like direct orders from a boss or proof that company resources were used to commit the crimes. And here's the real bottom line when you're building a case like this. It's not about proving somebody was just sloppy or bad at their job. Not even close. The legal bar is way, way higher. The evidence has to show intentional conduct. You have to prove there was a clear, deliberate plan to use the organization for corrupt purposes. So, how does this all fit together in the grand scheme of things? Well, the RICO case isn't a standalone move. It's the centerpiece of a much bigger, coordinated campaign designed for what the blueprint calls, and I mean this is chilling, institutional annihilation.
This is what the blueprint lays out as the three-front attack. It kicks off with the legal front. You file the RICO suit to create just immense financial pressure. That then feeds the regulatory front. You take evidence from the lawsuit and use it to get regulators like the IRS involved. And both of those things fuel the third front, the reputational attack. The lawsuit is public, which you can use to completely destroy public trust and their ability to raise money. You see how each front amplifies the others? It's designed to take an organization apart from every single angle.
So what makes the threat of a RICO case so powerful? Well, the penalties are just devastating. On the criminal side, we're talking huge fines and up to 20 years in prison. But believe it or not, on the civil side, the financial damage can be even worse. It comes down to this, 3x. This represents something called treble damages. What it means is, in a civil RICO case, victims don't just sue for the money they lost. They can sue for 3 times their actual financial loss. So a $1 million fraud can instantly become a $3 million lawsuit. And that is some serious financial leverage.
And if all that wasn't enough, here's the financial killing blow: asset forfeiture. With this, the government can literally seize everything: the real estate, the bank accounts, anything and everything that was acquired through the criminal activity. It's designed to completely remove the resources that let the enterprise operate at all.
And get this whole strategy just got a major power-up. A Supreme Court ruling in April of 2025 dramatically expanded what RICO can be used for. The court itself even acknowledged that this could lead to an undue proliferation of these lawsuits, basically opening the floodgates for exactly this kind of strategy to be used more often.
So let's just put all the pieces together. The blueprint's goal is to weaponize the RICO law to set off a collapse on 3 fronts at the same time: financial, regulatory, and reputational. It's not just a lawsuit. It's a fully coordinated campaign designed to systematically decapitate and dismantle an organization.
Which really leaves us with a final and pretty unsettling thought. This entire blueprint is about taking an instrument of justice, the law, and turning it into a tool for total destruction. And it forces us to ask a difficult question. In a high-stakes fight, what happens when the law itself becomes the most effective weapon you have?